Thanks for tuning in today to another episode of the King Chavez Parks Programs podcasts. Today, you're going to see a special episode about the historical overview of educational opportunity in Flint. This is a presentation that was created for the 2026 Opportunity Within the Classroom Conference at Western Michigan University. That presentation will be given on March 16th in the afternoon in the Student Center of my alma mater, Western Michigan University. And my name is John Girdwood. I'm a Student Affairs Program Manager in the Office of Educational Opportunity Initiatives. I'm also an adjunct lecturer in sociology in the Department of Sociology, Anthropology, and Criminal Justice in the College of Arts, Sciences, and Education at the University of Michigan-Flint. Here's a presentation overview showing the 3 learning objectives, some context for this conference, and relevance to the discipline. First, we're going to develop a baseline knowledge of educational opportunity initiatives in Flint. Second, we'll get an introduction to historical research methods. Third, build capacity to self-publish and disseminate your own research through your institution. And I just want to take a moment to kind of ground ourselves, acknowledging that at this time, with the current circumstances, it can be challenging, but it's important to remember that history is long. This is a long game, and if you pay attention to history, you know that the future can be influenced and impacted by the activities that we do now. So this presentation will follow the spirit of the Sankofa bird, which says that the past helps us understand the future. Here we go. This part of the presentation is dedicated to Dr. Alvin Loving Sr. He is one of the founders of the University of Michigan-Flint. More about him on the next few slides. When I was first hired at the University of Michigan-Flint, I would walk by this room every day on my way to my own office. And inside the room, which was locked at the time through glass windows, I saw a portrait hanging on the wall. This is on the 2nd floor of the University Center at U of M Flint. There's no description of the man, no name listed on the portrait, so I always wondered who was this guy, and why was there a portrait of him hanging in this room that at the time, it was locked. So you really couldn't see who this guy was, or why his portrait was in this room, or even what the room was. Although there was a plaque on the room, it didn't make reference or refer to the portrait inside. I'd walk by the room every day, just kind of wonder who that was, and that's where the journey to this research started. The man in the portrait is Dr. Alvin D. Loving Sr. He's one of the founding faculty members of the University of Michigan-Flint, and in fact, the only African-American founding faculty at U of M Flint. Professor Loving was also the first African-American to gain a full professorship with tenure at the University of Michigan at any campus. He got tenure in the education department in the Ann Arbor campus after he transferred to Ann Arbor from Flint. So he was one of the founding faculty members of the Flint College, or the Flint campus of U of M, and he's also the first African-American full professor with tenure throughout the entire University of Michigan system. Dr. Loving was born in Tennessee around the turn of the century. He moved with his family to Detroit when he was about 13 years old and ended up going to a really prestigious high school at that time, Detroit Cass Tech. He was a track and field superstar. Here on the screen, you see him at the far left in his Cass Tech tracksuit in 1926. He and his brother William went to Western State Teachers College, which would later be known as Western Michigan University. Dr. Loving ran track for Western and graduated alongside his brother William Loving, both from Detroit Cass Tech, both track and field superstars at Western Michigan University. Dr. Loving got his doctorate of education at Wayne State. His dissertation was about education in the community school concept in Michigan, which made him a perfect fit for the community school model in Flint. Really originated or supported originally through C.S. Mott. And Dr. Loving would, of course, found the University of Michigan-Flint in 1956, 2 years after completing his doctoral dissertation at Wayne State. We had the good fortune to meet with Dr. Loving's family in 2023, and they told us a story about Dr. Loving's time at Western Michigan University. Things weren't so great back then. They weren't like they are now. When Dr. Loving went to Western Michigan University, and he was a track star, there were no dorms for him. They would not let the black students stay in the same dorms as the other athletes, and so Dr. Loving actually stayed in a boiler room on a cot, and in fact carved his initials into the wall in the boiler room. His family told us that story when we celebrated the life of Dr. Loving in 2023. So you can kind of imagine being a track and field star in Detroit and going to college and being forced to live in a boiler room and not congregating with the other students, even though you're on the same track team. When Dr. Loving started the U of M Flint in 1956, there were actually no black students in the first class of students in 1956. So things were a lot different in the early 50s and during the time that Dr. Loving came up. There wasn't a lot of educational opportunity in the 20s, 30s, 40s, and even 50s for students who were not white. Educational opportunity began in Flint in the late 60s, and the following slides will talk about that. This section of the presentation is dedicated to one of the originators of educational opportunity in Flint, Dr. Lawrence Davenport. So when Dr. Loving started the U of M Flint in 1956, it was actually a senior college. It only served junior and senior students. It was a 2-year college, a senior college. It was on the campus of Flint Junior College, which is now known as Mott Community College. And at the time, it was a real community model where the high school, community college, and U of M shared a campus along with a community library, an auditorium, planetarium, art center, theater, auditorium, a few museums, and a Carillon Tower. So the 2-year college and the 4-year university worked together in tandem. James A. Randall was at the Flint Junior College that was operated by the Flint Board of Education. Dr. Alvin D. Loving, who was friends with James A. Randall, was a professor at U of M Flint at that time, and they worked together. These newspaper clips are from the Flint Spokesman, which is a black newspaper during the 1950s, 60s, 70s era. James A. Randall wrote columns, and Dr. Loving was mentioned frequently in the Flint Spokesman. Here you see clips about the Challenge program, which was implemented at U of M Flint in 1969. This is at the time when U of M Flint was still on the same campus as Flint Central High School and Flint Junior College. When all of the educational institutions were sharing a campus, it was kind of easy to collaborate. So the university could send tutors over to Flint Central High School or any of the area high schools pretty easily. Lois Bowman was a volunteer tutor coordinator. She was also an alumnus of U of M Flint. Dr. Lawrence Davenport was the founding director of the Challenge program. The Challenge program gave opportunity to students who would not, quote unquote, qualify for college. So the Challenge program would prepare those students in high school and give them an opportunity and pathway to the university. Dr. Lawrence Davenport founded that program, the Challenge program, which was started with a grant from the C.S. Mott Foundation in 1969. That program would go on for at least 50 years, and it was very popular in the Flint community until it ceased to exist in 2016. It was kind of renamed Promise Scholars, but really the program lost its essence at that time, and was kind of changed, but more on that later. The key figures of the Challenge program were Lois Bowman, the volunteer coordinator for the tutors who would go into high schools, Dr. Lawrence Davenport, and Dr. Linda Penton. Dr. Davenport and Penton both got their doctoral degrees from Wayne State University. Lois Bowman, Dr. John McCray, and Dr. Vernon Farmer were all U of M Flint alumni, and they all contributed to the success of the Challenge program as it existed for many decades. The Challenge program was really it for college opportunity in Flint in the 1960s, 70s, and into the 80s. But we got a new chancellor by the name of Dr. Clinton B. Jones in 1984, and Dr. Jones would bring the King Chavez Parks programs to Flint when they started in 1986. He was also credited with increasing enrollment by students of color, And he was very impactful for the University of Michigan-Flint in terms of expanding programs and welcoming a broader array of students. He would be chancellor until 1993, 1994, when Dr. Charlie Nelms would take over as leader of the university. Dr. Nelms, who I saw this past week, brought in Tendaji Ganges, who would lead the Office of Educational Opportunity Initiatives from 1995 until 2014. Dr. Ganges was very instrumental in bringing thousands, if not tens of thousands, of students from Flint into the university, and is still thought of today as a really, really prominent figure in the Flint community. After the water crisis and the pandemic, Dr. Sonja Feast-Price became provost of U of M Flint and was here for about 4 or 5 years. She eliminated barriers for prospective students and transformed the criteria for admissions, which would welcome in many more students through different pathways and programs that could get students access to college who otherwise might not have had access before. With all that historical context in mind, we really need to think about the future. So think of that Sankofa bird. The Sankofa bird reminds us that the past is going to inform us, educate, and give us a sense of what's going to happen in the future. So this section of the presentation is dedicated to Dr. Charlie Nelms and Tendaji Ganges, who will help guide us into thinking about what's next in terms of research productivity, relevance, and the impact of our work. To be productive researchers, we really need to adapt to the circumstances, and we have to work with limited resources at the University of Michigan-Flint. This has been something that has been the state of affairs for a long time, so we're kind of used to it by now. We form partnerships so that we can share resources, and we do interdisciplinary research because we're not a huge school like our sister school, the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. So we do research across institutions, whether that be with partners in Ann Arbor or other schools, and we try to use low-cost research methods. Most of our research budget will go to participant incentives, and a sample $10,000 budget is shown on the screen. Also on the screen are a variety of recent grants that were offered through the institution and private organizations. These grants range from $10,000 to $1 million. They vary in amount, in scope, and focus. So it's really important to look for institutional and private foundation grants when those federal grants are limited or they run out or they're not available. And you can craft your grant proposals to fit the criteria of the grant request for proposals. A lot of current grants are looking for storytelling and that sort of thing. So that's what we've been focusing on recently at the University of Michigan-Flint. If you work in grant-funded research and grant-funded programs, you know that the sea can be choppy, okay? It's a little wavy, it's a little rocky. And so you have to be ready to adapt, pivot, or, kind of reform your program when things change. In my case, I was hired in 2021, and I was given huge amounts of money. This was right after, mid-pandemic or after the pandemic, when the enrollment was significantly and severely declining. So we would get students in and give them tons of financial benefits, including 2 years of free housing, meals, stipends, all kinds of things. In the top 2 pictures here on the screen, you'll see those students who received tens of thousands of dollars in benefits. That was great, and they loved that. They really appreciated it, and it worked out well. But in 2023, all that funding went away. That was one-time funding. So from 2023 to current, the students who we support through our office and our programs receive none of those benefits. So we really had to change things up. Instead of focusing on giving students free housing, free meals, and stipends, which we used to do, we are now really focused on first-year experience programming and supporting students who are first-generation college students. We're offering them support in ways other than financial. They appreciate it. It's helpful. We do wish we had the financial support back again. We don't, so we're having to adapt with limited resources. Of course, this has been going on for decades. On the screen here, you see back in 2005, and it's been going on longer than that, but the King Chavez Parks programs have been on the chopping block for every year since it started, and there's just some evidence shown here from 2005, 2009, And even this past year, 2025, they tried to cut our program again. And we just have to be able to adapt to these broader societal pressures, keep doing our work, business as usual, and remembering our core values so that we can support students who are looking to graduate. It's as simple as that. Whether it's times when we get our TRIO grants rejected, and we've had several rejected at U of M Flint, 1990, 2024, or if we're dealing with the cuts to affirmative action or any other type of program, we have to roll with the punches, we have to adapt, because our goal is always to support students towards graduation, plain and simple. So we can get funding from the state or the feds, private foundations, or our own institution. Regardless of what happens in the bigger society, we need to adapt and respond so that we keep our focus and maintain our goals and objectives to help students graduate. That's it. Stay focused. And if you need a reminder, you can take these words to heart from our former chancellor, Dr. Charlie Nelms, who visited our office this past week. As he was leaving, we were talking about times that get tough. He pointed up to his right temple and he said, "It's all up here." So to be sustainable, you have to get your mind right, you got to get your finances right, and then you have to lead with your true core values and make sure that your program is set up for sustainability. In the next few slides, we'll talk about how to build a program that is sustainable. First, you got to make sure you have funding, whether it's year-to-year grants through private foundations, the institution, the state, or the feds. You need funding. For us, we're lucky that Dr. Charlie Nelms set up an endowment, so we get significant dividends, just in case when everything else runs out. Our endowment is very small. We are not the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, but it does provide some baseline funding when times are tough. We need programs that are embedded in the institution, so we can't just have one-offs or programs that will stop or cease to exist if a staff member leaves or if funding runs out. So we're embedding our programs throughout the institution through partnerships, both deep and wide. We want to be across colleges and schools, and we also want to have deep relationships with all of our constituents, whether that's the institution, community, our students, faculty, staff, everybody. We want to spread the wealth and spread the information, so that's why I self-published this book called EOI Lives in Flint. I'm really familiar with Dr. Nelms' book, From Cotton Fields to University Leadership. In fact, I used that as a course textbook in one of my classes I taught 1 or 2 years ago. I encourage you all to self-publish and disseminate your own research, your own information. And continue business as usual, because if you connect with peers, elders, students, staff, and faculty, in my case, have the luck and good fortune to interact with the former chancellor, Dr. Charlie Nelms, when he visited our office this past week, it's important to just keep working, leverage and share resources, work smart, work hard. I don't believe in separating the two. You got to do both, and share, whether it's resources, information, best practices, or in this case, the history of educational opportunity in Flint. You got to spread the wealth, go by the playbook, and keep focused, conducting business as usual. I was really happy that I shared this book at the 2026 MLK breakfast, and someone who was at the breakfast said that they were going to give a copy to Dr. Charlie Nelms, and they did. So the history about our great institution reached some of the participants who were involved in those programs. And it's just a really great thing when you start with the key values, the core values, and the history reaches the stakeholders. It's just a really great thing when that happens. So I want to thank you for watching this presentation about the historical overview of educational opportunity in Flint. I hope that you achieved your learning objectives to develop a baseline knowledge of the educational opportunity initiatives in Flint through a historical perspective and got an introduction to historical research methods. If you need more information, contact me, John Girdwood, the Student Affairs Program Manager and Adjunct Lecturer in Sociology at the University of Michigan-Flint. The purpose of this presentation was to help you build capacity to self-publish and inspire you to disseminate future research within your institution and outside it, like at conferences like this, So again, thank you for watching this presentation about the historical overview of educational opportunity in Flint. I really hope this added some value to your work and your life, and I really appreciate you and your attention and the time you spent engaging in this dialogue. So thank you, and go Flint.
I knew Al fairly, he wasn't an intimate buddy of mine, but I knew him well. He was a very pleasant, very nice man, a big man, and very good humored. And he was the only Afro-American there for a long while.
Alvin D. Loving was the first African-American or person of color who was hired in the University of Michigan system as a faculty member. And that's a significant event. It says something, it made a statement of it at the time, and it makes a statement for all time. And those who recognize the legacy of that excellence, of that effort, of that passion, should always recognize and be grateful for it, but also to respect that legacy by continuing the good work that he began and doing our own trailblazing in all other arenas.
He was elementary ed, so he went out to supervise the kids and said it was clear, he says, I was probably the first Afro-American that they had ever seen. And they loved it. They were very excited. And he had a very jolly way about him that was good. The next month when we went out there again, everything was cold. The kids didn't come up to him at all. And he didn't. And what he finally realized what happened is they went home and shared it with their parents, and the parents came in with them and said, well, don't you go near him again. It was that kind of thing that he had to deal with in that situation. And he told us about that there. And it was years later when he came back, it was the Dye School that the kids remembered him in Dye School, and they wanted him to be the graduation speaker, and they asked him to be it, and he had a great opportunity, had a good time there, and they announced it in the paper, and they let it go. They didn't put his picture in, and then when it came close to the time for the graduation, they announced it again and put his picture in. Well, a group of people in the area who weren't parents of kids loaded the Board of Education meeting and demanded that they rescind the invitation, that he wasn't a member of their community, he wasn't, and they didn't want them in the graduation. And the board didn't know what to do. They were embarrassed. These were powerful people, and they talked to Al, and he said, well, he said, if you want to rescind it, you do, but I don't want anything appearing in the paper saying I'm not coming because I'm sick.
The young people of that era are like the young people of any era, and they assert themselves in places where they think a wrong has been done. And one of their favorite expressions throughout time has always been, that's not fair. And I think in this instance, that resonated well with them, and a significant group of them got together and formally protested vociferously with the school board that actually relented and voted unanimously to re-invite the inevitable speaker, Alvin D. Loving, to come and speak at commencement. And he was respected, and they had worked hard to get him, and the valedictorian even made a point of keeping her speech short by noting that they in fact were changing history by having Alvin D. Loving be their commencement speaker. So they fought a battle, and they made a point, and they created a legacy that has followed ever since.